You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I think that this kid from Liberty, Kaden Salter, he is my number one on the board right now. Number one of all the guys that have been linked to Syracuse, I should say. Kaden Salter. Multiple reports from 24/7 Sports and On3 have said that Salter is visiting Syracuse this week. They didn't say what day, so it could have already happened. It could be happening right now. It could happen tomorrow, Saturday, I should say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is. But he is visiting Syracuse at some time this week. Okay, that's what the reports say. Now, what I do find interesting about Kaden Salter, one of those teams that was looking in on him was Florida State. I think they were set to get a visit, or they were eyeing a visit with him. But they just got Thomas Castellanos, and that's hilarious. They're going to stink next year again. Ugh, if you're a Seminole fan, I feel so sorry for you. I mean, I get 1 year of punishment's bad, but now 2 years of punishment? Now you get Thomas Castellanos? Really? Enjoy 6 wins or at best. But anyway, they got Thomas Castellanos. Are they going to be in on Kaden Salter still? Are they going to get both? Maybe, because I wouldn't guarantee Castellanos a starting spot, and I think Salter's better than him anyway, but that was just something interesting that I found. It was last night that Castellanos to Florida State. I was like, wow, okay, so they must not be in on Salter? Maybe, I don't know. But I did a whole podcast on Salter recently, and you can check it out after this. 44 combined touchdowns in 2023. And I understand that he regressed last year. I get it. But you have to remember, he's playing at Liberty, and they lost their top wide receiver in CJ Daniels, who, by the way, is back in the transfer portal after a year with LSU. So I'm willing to kind of give that break to Salter, being like, okay, he regressed. Well, they're at Liberty. They don't exactly get the most, they don't exactly get the greatest talent in the world to support a guy with. They lost CJ Daniels and they didn't replace him one lick. They didn't even try. He would be a quote unquote rental because he's only got 1 year of eligibility, and it would require Syracuse to change up their offensive scheme a little bit. This is not a player that you can sit here and say, let's make him do the same things that Kyle McCord just did. But if you change up your offensive scheme a little, which, by the way, we're in December, now is the time to do it, you could be getting a really, really good player in Kaden Salter. I like his floor because while his floor is not great, I actually said his floor is Thomas Castellanos. His ceiling is really high. So if you can get somewhere within that range, preferably on the higher end, I think Kaden Salter, to me, remains as the number one option for Syracuse of the guys that have been linked to the Orange. In total, there have been 4 of them. Connor Weigman is another. There's just one problem with Connor Weigman. He's the transfer from Texas A&M. He's off the board. He committed to Houston last night, and good for him. I don't take anything away from him. On3 was connecting Syracuse and Weigman together. I made a whole podcast really about Connor Weigman and how he could be a decent fit. Fran Brown had said that if he entered the portal, that they would reach out. I think he's like one of the first few quarterbacks to come off the board. There was another guy that went to Duke. So that option's gone. There will not be Connor Weigman for Syracuse next year. He's off the board. He's at Houston now. But I had to address it. He would have been in one of the preferred quarterback options because I do like his upside as well. He doesn't have a high floor. His floor is pretty low, but his ceiling is up there. And I think with the right offense, right offensive scheme, the right coaching, maybe even the right weapons, he can thrive at Houston. But the point being, he's at Houston now. And then there is a wild card for preferred quarterback options. Is there someone out there in the portal right now that Syracuse can go after that they're not being linked to as of this recording, which it's December 12th at 2:24 p.m. Eastern? There are plenty of guys. Fernando Mendoza from Cal is in the portal. I think he would make a lot of sense. He's another guy like Colandrea that's not ACC experience, 2+ year starter. But in all likelihood, he's going to end up at Miami. You can check out Locked On Canes after this. There are just so many ties between I said Carlos Mendoza. That's the Mets skipper. Fernando Mendoza, excuse me. There's just so many ties between him and Miami. So I would love him in a Syracuse uniform. I think it would be a great fit. He's a pro style guy, but I don't see them beating out Miami if Miami wants him. And then the other one is Washington State's John Mateer. There are two problems with Mateer. I mean, he's an awesome player, but there's two issues. He's technically not in the portal yet as of right now. There was a report that came out there that he intends to enter the portal, but until you're actually in the portal, you are not in the portal. And John Mateer from Washington State is not in the portal yet. But let's say he does enter the portal, and I think it's likely he will. He's going to maybe be the belle of the ball. This might be the top quarterback in the portal this offseason. This guy's a stud. So it's not to say that Syracuse isn't. Look, I have said repeatedly that I think the Orange are actually in great shape to land a top quarterback because of what they did with Kyle McCord and kind of resurrecting his image. But there are other programs that have developed quarterbacks well, that have gotten transfers and developed them well as well, that have deeper budgets. So when we're talking about a guy like John Mateer, do I imagine maybe he takes a look at Syracuse? But it's going to be really tough to get him. The competition for him is going to be fierce. So those are the two issues. He's not technically in the portal, and competition is going to be tough for a guy like John Mateer. Hopefully they can get him, though. So overall, when you're looking at the preferred quarterback options, number one is Kaden Salter. It's not only realistic, but he's also available. He's available, and it's realistic. Connor Weigman, but he went to Houston, so that's off the board. And then a wild card name out there, Fernando Mendoza would be great, but probably Miami. And then John Mateer would be great, but not in the portal, and there's going to be a lot of competition. So leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you prefer Salter as your number one guy in the transfer portal? Are you bummed that Connor Weigman is no longer an option? And how do you feel about any wild cards? Is there a name that's out there that you want to see Syracuse go after in the portal? Let me know in the comment section below.